Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, April 29th, 2023. It's been another great week of shows with great topics, of course, great guests. We kicked off the week with a discussion of how an ERISA consultant transitioned to becoming a novelist. Let's take a look.
So Liv Anderson is one of my pen names. I have a book coming out in October called Leave the Lights On under that pen name, and a book that was released last December called Little Red House. Under the name Liv Anderson, I actually write darker thrillers. And under the name Wendy Tyson, I have written what some in the industry would call cozy mysteries or lighter mysteries. One set in the Philadelphia suburbs called the Greenhouse Mystery Series. And then I have another series coming out beginning next summer called the Hummingbird Hollow Mystery Series, and that takes place in Vermont, and that's under yet another pen name, Isla Rose. So it's been an exciting journey. It started, my first book came out in 2013, one of my mystery series, one of the novels from my mystery series, and I've just continued to enjoy the journey. I am an ERISA attorney by training, but I would probably say that I'm a recovering ERISA attorney. So I'm
a recovering retirement plan advisor.
There you go.
And a record keeper. There you go.
So I'm actually an ERISA consultant is my day job. But yeah, I've been writing since forever. My parents, my mother, my father is now passed, but my mother jokes that as a child, I would have like a family newsletter, and they had to be really careful about what they were talking about in the house because it would end up in this family newsletter. But I started writing short stories at a pretty young age, wrote short stories all through college, into my young adult life. I was actually a therapist with teenagers prior to going to law school. And I wrote throughout that process, had some short stories published in literary journals. But I didn't really start writing novels until my late 20s. And my very first novel sits on a shelf. It was never published. Got me an agent, but not a publishing deal. And that's okay. It's all about craft and learning craft. But yes, I've been interested in writing forever. And it's interesting because I think with law, it's so left brain, especially statutory law. And writing is such a refreshing kind of right brain creative activity. But the beauty of mysteries and thrillers, it's a nice combination. You know, there's a real logic to it, and there needs to be, but there's also that creative aspect. So I think it's gone well. You know, the first novels took a long time, right? You're learning the craft and drafting and revising. So I would say my first books were multiple years in the works. Other books I've had to write under deadline, so I've been forced to write in a much faster fashion. I'm actually a pretty fast writer. I'm kind of a binge writer, so I'll sit and do nothing, and this is where the lawyer comes in, I guess, but I'll do nothing but write for maybe 2 weeks and crank out a draft. Now, it's a bad draft, and I'll spend the next weeks and months revising it, and sometimes a book will go through 12, 15, 20 revisions before it even sees the publisher's desk, the editor's desk. That's a long-winded way of saying it really does depend. So it can be a year to 2 years. I hand in the manuscript, which took me, say, 6 to 9 months to write, and it's published a year later. So 18 months to 2 years. Or it could be Little Red House took me 3 to 4 years to write. And then, once we found a publisher for it, it was another little over a year before it was published. So that was probably about a 5-year journey. Every writer's journey is a little bit different. For me, I have a wonderful agent. She's in New York, and she's just been fantastic. So my first step is I write a book. I get it to the point that I think that other people should and could see it, and I send it to her. She reviews it, normally has several rounds of edits. And at that point, she'll decide what editors and publishing houses should see the book. And then it's submitted to them, and hopefully someone decides they like it or love it and offer a publishing contract. At that point, it becomes a relationship between me and the publisher, and the editor at the publisher will then do several rounds, at least one round of developmental edits. Sometimes it's multiple, before it goes on to other editing editing staff who will do copy edits and then final edits, proofreading, et cetera. So it is a long process. There's a lot of people. You're also working with a marketing team. There's just a lot of people who come together to get a book out there in the world.
Next up, we discussed how retirement plan participants are setting it and forgetting it. Their accounts there is. Let's take a look.
And it's something that we're very concerned about, and we've been big advocates of recent legislation in Secure 2.0 to try to alleviate some of this problem, which I'm sure we're going to get to in the course of our conversation. But the truth is that many plan participants, when they leave an employer, particularly those of us who are young, who are just starting out our careers, who really aren't focused on retirement planning, we tend to forget about our 401k accounts when we leave. Maybe they have very small balances, so we're not thinking about them. We were auto-enrolled. We were sort of really not thinking about them. And so when we leave, we leave these plans behind. And currently, the Department of Labor Form 5500 data estimates that there are about 21 million of these inactive vested accounts, which means that essentially the participants are no longer contributing to the accounts. They're not active, but the participants have rights to them. They're vested, so they have a claim on them in retirement, but they're just sitting dormant. We don't really know how many participants have truly forgotten about these accounts, what we tend to call lost accounts, which is the biggest problem, obviously, and how many are just rationally leaving their accounts with their older employer because maybe the plan had very low fees, for example, and so it was just a very good plan and they want to let the money sit there. But we do tend to think a lot of these accounts have relatively low balances. The median balance in these inactive vested accounts, we estimate, is about $15,000, which seems to indicate that maybe the participants just aren't thinking about them. And over the course of the life cycle, as you get older, you could end up with 3 or 4, maybe even 5 of these inactive vested accounts sitting behind an older employer with problems. First of all, you're probably not actively managing them or thinking about them or setting the asset allocation to be appropriate for your age and your target retirement date. You might, as I mentioned, just forget they're there. And so you reach retirement and you don't realize that you have a claim on $15,000 sitting in a 401k account that could be very useful to you. Or later on, you might have to incur a lot of hassle in trying to roll over these plans into one consolidated type of plan. Before Secure 2.0, the only recourse people had really was to try to roll over their old employer plans into an IRA. Now, IRAs have advantages and disadvantages. One of the major disadvantages is that they tend to have slightly higher fee structure than employer 401k plans. So from the perspective of accumulating assets, they're not ideal. It was very difficult for participants to roll over their old employer plans into their new employer plan, which would seem like the most logical way to keep track of all your plans is simply take it with you when you move to a new employer. Plan sponsors really had a very difficult time keeping track of participants who were no longer updating their information. And as a result, and the government really didn't know either. So there was very little recourse for anybody really to try to reunite participants with their lost 401k accounts, so their inactive vested accounts. Now, Secure 2.0 is trying to make this a bit easier along 2 dimensions, which we mentioned. So the first, which you just said, was they're starting to build what's called a pension lost and found, which is essentially an online website where participants can go to try to track down to see if they have any accounts where the sponsors are no longer able to reach them, for example. So that, I think, is a really nice development and should hopefully really enable the participants to track down their lost accounts. But at the same time, there's been a big push for this so-called auto portability, where essentially a consortium of industry participants gets together and automatically transfers small balances in a previous employer plan to the next employer. And before Secure 2.0, there were legislative hurdles for such that industry really couldn't do that. But now we're starting to get starting to see some movement. Some of those legislative barriers have been lowered. And so I am very hopeful that moving forward, it'll just be a lot easier for sponsors in particular to help participants move these accounts along with them. And from the sponsor's perspective, it should be good for them also to move some of these small balance accounts that are difficult to manage, that you have to, as a sponsor, you have to keep track of, but don't have a lot of assets in them, to move that over into another 401k account where the asset base can grow. And so I think it's a win-win for everybody, this type of auto portability arrangement. From the participant's perspective, I mean, I'll admit, I left an employer and I left my 401k behind, right? I was in my 20s. I wasn't thinking about it. Yeah, exactly. No. Now I'm older. I know better. Still young, but know better. Yeah. And I wouldn't do that again. But I can easily see how, if someone even in my position does that, because the hassle cost of figuring it all out is just too high, I can easily see how someone who's not focused on these issues, the path of least resistance is to just leave the account behind and hope for the best.
Well, we're halfway through our best segments for the week. When we come back, we'll take a look at the other half. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is your BRN Retirement Update. Fraudsters are out there trying to take money away from the elderly and older adults, and now they're using cryptocurrency.
It's pretty pervasive, I would say. It's an up-and-coming trend. And I kind of hesitate up-and-coming trend. It's just still the same tactics and methods and methodology that scammers have been using. It's just a different form of payment. So what we were trying to do is just let the public know that, hey, this is happening and they're asking for crypto. So one thing that I always recommend is if you're receiving a text message from a bank, it's always good to follow up with whoever that service provider is, whether it be a local bank or a national bank, and just give them a call and see, hey, I received this message, or an email. It could be an email as well, saying, is this legitimate? Most big banks have a fraud department that you can call. It's better to be safe than sorry.
You've got to be mindful about your accounts, and if you're a caregiver, you need to look after those you're caring for. With your BRN Retirement Update, I'm Jeffrey Snyder with the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. Next up, we discussed how athletes are influenced and impacted by money. Let's take a look.
So something that I found super interesting during my research is that I actually reached out to college students. I wish I had reached out to professional athletes, but it seemed as if college students' opinions on the influence of money really isn't all that special. It kind of seemed as if people kind of care, but didn't really care if their favorite athlete left their team or whatever that was. But I definitely found some data that people that watch sports found that money happened to be the number one thing that they thought influenced athletes, as opposed to facilities, coaching, management, the location of a new team, the market size, whatever that might be. But I do wish I had reached out to even college athletes to see what their decisions would have been had they been presented two contracts. Because myself as a college student, if I was presented with the opportunity of Patrick Mahomes type money to leave my team or Tom Brady type money to stay with my team, I'm biasly going to say I'll accept that Tom Brady money to stay with my hometown team. So I wish I had reached out to different people, but nonetheless, it was still super interesting to look into. And if you any questions about it, I'm more than happy to. If you look at someone like LeBron James' son, Bronny James, I believe he's expected to make somewhere around $8 million next year. And you look at someone like Angel Reese, she was on the LSU national championship winning team for the women's basketball team. And I think she's expected to make somewhere around $1.5 million. And that right there is more than I think anyone in the WNBA. And that's just from her making NIL deals. So I think they can be extremely motivating. I don't think that players need to go under the table anymore and do certain things to make the money that they deserve off of who they are. I think it's great for the sport, because if you look at someone like Johnny Manziel, he could have made so much money in college, and I think he wouldn't have been this way that he was in the NFL had he been handed that money as a college student. But I think it's a really good thing for college sports. I think I think it could teach college students and college athletes possibly how to manage their money, but I also think that they're getting what they deserve. I think facilities are actually extremely important when it comes to college athletics. Coming to High Point, our teams haven't been too good my 4 years I've been here, but I did see a massive renovation for our basketball team. They got a brand new stadium, brand new arena, and just from that alone, it's helped our coaching. More coaches have wanted to come here. It's helped with our players. Our team has gotten a little bit better since I've been here. Granted, we are playing in the Big South, which is technically Division I, but we've never been spectacular. And after the renovations, there have been better players that have now transferred to our school or enrolled in our school for sports due to that. And I think that definitely carries over to other schools, such as, I don't know, Alabama or LSU or Clemson. Granted, they are powerhouse schools, but their facilities are nothing short of spectacular. So I think facilities play a huge role in athletes wanting to commit somewhere.
And finally, teaching financial literacy to children, teenagers, students, and of course, workers. Let's take a look.
Financial literacy has emerged as a topic of interest for financial services industry especially over the past decade. I would say not just our industry, but also not-for-profits, government organizations, and even large US employers. So as a result of all of that interest, there are many available financial literacy programs in today. Despite that, Americans of all ages are still struggling with their finances and with making sound financial decisions. individuals do not know how to effectively manage their daily budgets, their daily expenses. They're not sure how to start saving and investing for long-term goals such as retirement, or how to protect against key risks. There are also significant differences in financial literacy across sociodemographic boundaries, such as income, gender, and race. And we believe we can change that. We can change that by focusing on financial literacy much earlier in life. We can bring financial education to young people in schools, colleges, and universities, and also to those who are just starting their career. Why is this important? Because there is a close connection between financial literacy and financial wellness and retirement security later on. And we know that building a solid understanding of basic financial concepts and adopting healthy financial habits early in life makes it much easier to manage complex financial roles and competing financial priorities later in the life cycle. So financial literacy, in other words, becomes a building block for a foundational building block, I would say, for enabling long-term financial prosperity and well-being. So those are the main reasons why Spark identified financial literacy as one of the key programs for 2023 and beyond.
I mean, as Senzana mentioned, financial education can and should start earlier, definitely no later than high school. Right now, about 30 states have a high school level financial literacy program, which is great, but that means about 20 states don't. And there's no reason why grade school kids shouldn't be learning the ABCs of financial literacy. We know that education on the basics of budgeting, saving, and investing creates that foundation of our relationship with money. And that relationship with money is a lifelong journey. So as schools develop curriculums focused on financial literacy, there's two important things to keep in mind. First, what's the same about financial wellness today? And second, what's different? I mean, when you think about what's the same, financial wellness has always been and will always be about empowering people to have a greater degree of positive control over their own lives. Research has shown us a greater sense of financial wellness leads to a greater sense of well-being. And we've also seen literacy programs instill confidence and help with better decision-making. That helps all of us avoid the lasting impact of those poor decisions, especially for those people just starting out in their careers. And speaking of avoiding poor decisions, we know that the more financially literate people are, the less vulnerable they are to fraud. So let's look at what's different. In a word, it's technology. Teaching how to balance a checkbook, it may not be the skill you need today. It's now about apps, digital assistants, planning tools. We've got to educate our children and adults on both the power and pitfalls of new tools and technology. And you've probably seen the recent Forbes article that reported 56% of Americans can't cover $1,000 in emergency expenses. Improving this is going to depend on better financial education, helping people learn that better money habits and setting money aside for emergencies will help them enjoy greater security, especially in retirement.
Spark Institute is a nonprofit organization that provides advocacy on issues that impact retirement plan participants, plan sponsors, and providers. Spark member organizations serve over 100 million individuals who are participants in 401k and other defined contribution plans. Traditionally, a big part of that service has been ongoing participant education on how to save and invest to and through retirement. In other words, enabling people to retire with dignity, to retire on their own terms. More recently, Spark members have started to focus on financial literacy as a topic. And there are various ways and approaches that they're taking. However, at the heart of that is all of them are working in some way with local communities, schools, and other institutions to either fund, shape, or deliver various financial literacy programs. So we believe that in addition to working independently, there is an opportunity now for member organizations to coordinate those efforts through Spark, if and where appropriate, of course. Spark can provide a platform to share best practices, to create new partnerships with other nonprofit organizations that are interested in this topic, support research on financial literacy, and provide public policy advocacy if needed. So we're at the beginning of this new journey, but we are very excited about the difference that we can make together.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, and all in one place for you to review, look at, and take in, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, we'll visit our website, and of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Sunday. We'll have members of the media, academia, financial services, and government standing by as we analyze all the news and events for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.